Hey everyone, and welcome to our Facebook Live. This is the first one we've done in a couple weeks because Jennifer and I have been away for a bit, but tell us where you're from. Let us know where you're checking in from. We are so glad that you're here. Today's going to be a little bit different, and I don't know if we'll ever do something like this again because it depends on how this one goes, but I'm going to be doing a little blast into the past, and we're going to, I guess, show you some really cool things, but I want to give you a little bit of the background first. As you all know, there has been some trying times over the last 18 months, and we are all in this boat together. And Jennifer and I have not been able to get home to Canada to see our family for 18 months, and we tried numerous times. How many times would you say, Jennifer, we actually tried to get back home?
I'm guessing 6 or 7.
Yeah, 6 or 7. We're talking about flight cancellations and then getting rebooked and then not going to, because Canada was in a pretty extensive quarantine. And when we finally did get back, which was 5 weeks ago, we had the, I guess, honor of staying in a luxury quarantine hotel in Toronto for 3 days, which was a government-sanctioned hotel, which was mandatory. And then we got to be an 11-day quarantine where we couldn't see anybody. And then we had 3 weeks of just awesomeness with our family. And I know a lot of you can relate. And I personally tried to bury myself into work for the last 18 months to keep busy and try to keep safe and healthy. But I'm just so thankful that my family has been safe and healthy. And I hope all you guys have just been blessed as well. I know there's all kinds of things happening all over the world that are just crazy. We couldn't have seen any of this coming. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that with you because we did get a chance to see our kids, and that is number one. We, just so you guys know, I know this seems to happen every time, but we have a thunderstorm happening outside, and there's heavy, heavy rains. You might hear thunder, and if we lose signal, we'll be back. So now here is a little stream here. I'm just going to show you guys. This is a picture of our 3 kids, and we had some pictures taken when we were back in Canada this time, and that is Jesse, Beth, and James, and they are all part of the legacy. All 3 of them work within our family business, and that was probably one of our big joys, right, Jen? See our kids again?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So my arms around them.
Oh yeah, Jennifer, when we finally got out of quarantine, Jennifer threw their arms around them and would not let go. So that was definitely number one. Now, I'm just going to move the slideshow over, and this was number 2. We got to see our grandchildren. And Jennifer, how did you enjoy seeing the grandkids?
Wasn't long enough.
Okay, it wasn't long enough. Keep in mind that this is Eli and Noah, and when Eli was actually, 6 months old when we ended up, getting locked down. So he was a baby the last time we saw him, and then we got, of course, there is, we're blessed because we do have FaceTime and we have Skype and we have Zoom and we can connect with our family. So that has been a real blessing, but nothing beats being with your family for real. And again, being able to wrap your arms around them. I had to bring this picture up because when Eli was there, Beth, my daughter, tried to teach him how to smile for the top photographer. And every time we said smile, that was the face he made. So we got about 100 pictures taken, and I would say 90 of them have Eli doing that. So for some of our family, kind of poses, it was kind of cute because we were all sitting there looking at the camera. And when they actually told us to smile, we made sure that we all did one of these. So everybody was kind of looking at the camera and smiling the same way. So grandkids, that is a huge part of why we obviously wanted to go back. And it was just tons and tons of fun. Now, here is another reason. My grandmother, who really, my grandmother is the patriarch of the legacy. Her and my grandfather started our business many, many years ago. And thank the Lord, she's still with us, and she's in her 90s now. But we got to see my grandmother, who is there in the pink shirt, and my mom, who is in the blue shirt. So it was well overdue for me to see my grandmother and my mother. My grandmother is not in the best of health, so every time we get to see her is a real blessing. But I did want to let you guys know that we have a, I guess, a new addition to the legacy coming soon, a new legacy member. And you might not have seen it in the original picture, but my daughter Beth is expecting another baby. And Jen, how do you feel about that?
Yay for the legacy.
Yay. Okay, so we have a new legacy member under construction right now. And when's the due date, Jen?
In Canada, Boxing Day, which is December 26th.
Okay, so this could be a Christmas baby. So we are super excited. And it's kind of funny because I always joke that my kids will do anything to get me back to Canada in the winter. And this is definitely something that will get me back to Canada in the winter. So I did mention when we had this little live that we're going to give away some prizes. And we are going to give some prizes away to people on YouTube and Facebook. And the way this is going to work, it's going to be pretty simple. You just have to type in whether you think it's going to be a boy or a girl. We do know, and I'm going to reveal it shortly, but do you think it's going to be a boy or a girl? So take a guess, one guess only, please, and we will randomly choose the winners based on who chose a boy or a girl. So, and we'll give away a couple of prizes. I think we're going to give away some admissions to our upcoming webinars. We have 2 webinars coming up pretty soon, so you guys could win an admission to that. So that is sort of what was happening with us getting to Canada. And part of what we did when we were there was we actually did a little bit of housework. It's been, almost a decade since we've been gone. We were, traveling back and forth prior to the pandemic, but it was just to visit family. So we've had a lot of stuff that has been, I guess, in storage, you could say, Jennifer, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stuff that's been in storage, and I got to go through, because we were locked down, a whole bunch of boxes, and I found some really cool stuff. And it brought back a lot of memories for me, so I wanted to share some of those memories with you guys, and hopefully you'll find them interesting and kind of cool. If you do have any questions going through this, please, type them in. James, my son with the longer hair, is actually on YouTube, and Beth is on Facebook, and Jennifer is here to read me off the questions. So if you have any questions as we go along, please feel free, and Jennifer will pipe in and kind of help us along. Right, Jen?
That's right.
Okay, so I'm going to move over to camera B over here, and I have a couple things that I'm going to show you guys as we go over. And I can toggle through both of these. I kind of have myself set up now where I can toggle through things. But we ended up getting some little gifts that we, I guess, had sent to us during the pandemic that we couldn't get home for. And over the years, I got to tell you that our customers are awesome. I mean, we love you guys. We wouldn't be doing what we do without you, and we really appreciate you guys. And we appreciate all the kind words and the support and everything you guys give. And throughout the years, I've gotten some pretty fun little gifts from people. But I did have something sent to me from one of our, I guess, attendees of our first webinar that we did recently. And this one was actually, and I got to see if I can switch over. There we go. Okay, this was actually a little wooden plaque that was sent to me. And I do have to read the back of this. This was actually to commemorate our first webinar. It says, presented to the Dear family by the Weir family. That's kind of ironic in itself. On the occasion of your first webinar, we were so blessed because we did our first live interactive webinar in February of 2020. It was literally right before everything got locked down. I think it was actually January, wasn't it, Jen, when we did that webinar? And then within weeks, maybe it was February, but within weeks, everything got locked down. So we were kind of blessed because we actually kind of knew what we were doing in Zoom. And a lot of people at that first webinar had never used Zoom before. We had like 1,000 people sign up, and most of them had never used Zoom. Now, if you ask people, do you know how to use Zoom? Everybody puts their hands up and says yes. Now, there is a little PS on here. It says, PS to John, I use spell check from the husband, Mark. And I just want you guys to know, and this was a little bit of a joke when we did this webinar, it actually says the proof is in the stitching. So yes, I did spell stitching incorrectly. And thank you very much, Weir family, for sending that. It's awesome. But I did also have a little special guest from one of our admins within our Facebook groups. And I do want you guys to know that we really are a family business. It's, me and the kids and my wife, my mother and my grandparents were involved. And most of the people who help us are, I guess, started out as customers and have turned into family. We have just incredible people. We have Karen and Ina and Linda and Ginny and Christine, who sent me these little samples here. And we also have Leanne, who is like family. She's been just an incredible support for like decades now. So we love you, Leanne. If you've ever called in or typed in with a ticket to our Deer's Legacy, it's Leanne who always helps you guys get things sorted out. So anyways, Christine did this, and I have to show you this work because it is actually done on a couple of pieces of equipment that she has, and it is chenille, but it's done on an original chenille machine. And the Cornelli machine that she did this on is a 1945 machine. She also did some of the stitching around the edge on a Singer that is from the 60s. I think it's 62 she had mentioned. So we have, this is our family crest. This is, I have a tattoo of this, and my sons have this as well, but this is the JD, and this is our kind of family crest. So it was pretty cool, and we really, really appreciate that. One of the things that I did find when I was actually tearing apart our storage area to, I guess, clean up a little bit. And it was kind of fun because it took me way longer than it was supposed to, didn't it, Jen? I started tearing things out of boxes, and I was probably playing with stuff more than I was cleaning. So Jennifer was getting a little angry with me.
Think of your 10-year-old cleaning his room and exploring everything new again.
Okay, that was me. My boys, my sons, who are, like in their mid-20s and almost 30, they call me the man-child. So I'll give you an idea of how I can get distracted. But this is a really cool design, and this was actually done way back in the day. And we're talking probably back in the 90s or 80s. I don't even know, but this was a big design that we did, which is all embroidered. But the chenille work that's on here, and if you get really close, you can see the chenille work in the yellow around the outsides. That chenille work is actually done on an old Cornelli machine, just like the one that Christine used when she created our design. So, that's the thing. When you're talking about these incredible pieces of equipment, they actually were built to last. And I know that my grandparents started out in the Shifley days, and we had Shifley machines. And when we did break those machines down in the late 90s, we actually broke them down, and they got put on a ship and were sold to a company in India. And odds are those machines back from the 1950s are still being used today. They were made of battleship cast iron. They never wore out, and they just kept going and going and going. So that was one of the fun things that I found, which was an original chenille design. And I've been having a little bit of fun with this because if you've been watching some of our YouTube videos, I've done a couple of little chenille patterns that replicate, it's actually a 12 weight thread, and I'm doing some things with appliques, and I'm doing a kind of a, we called it a vermicelli or a stipple stitch that's going around. And I did that type of work, way back when we actually won our 2001 grand prize for a stipple effect, but it was done by hand manually. Now, I will let you guys know, because I got a few little comments come in. I did not invent chenille. I did not invent the chenille effect. I saw it actually on a post from Wilcom they sent out, and somebody had done this. So I've never made a claim to inventing applique or lace or chenille or anything. I'm a digitizer, and part of learning how to digitize is learning from other people and playing and having fun and looking at how things are done and then trying to create it yourself. As an educator for the last 25 years, I have really never held anything back. I teach you guys everything I was taught when I was a 17-year-old kid by my Shifley mentors, and I'm learning as I'm continuing to go on, and that's what makes it so much fun. So this is a cool chenille design that we did replicating on a sewing machine, and it is just playing. That's what we should do, and I hope you guys, when you are, let's say, members of our legacy club, or if you buy our designs, if you want to see how I do techniques or how I do things, you have a blueprint in the design. I don't mind if you try to replicate the effects and the blending and the stitches and everything that I did, because in reality, there's nothing new under the sun. It's a stitch, and you guys are welcome to try to create it. And I'm not going to make, claim that you did anything wrong with that. But here is some of the stuff I found from the Shifley days, and this was kind of fun. I ended up finding some of the old Shifley, I guess, threads that we actually use. This is how the threads were actually put, or I guess manufactured for the Shifley machines. They actually came with a little peg on the machine, and they would wind off the machine like this. They wound off like that. Now, if you've ever watched any of our videos where I talk about tips or tricks for freestanding lace, one thing I've always said is you should have your thread come off like toilet paper. That makes more sense than trying to wind off like this, because you're creating kinks. Now, lo and behold, 100 or 150 years ago, when embroidery first became mechanical and they started with Plowin and Shifley machines, guess which way the thread came off the spool? Like toilet paper. So again, that's nothing new under the sun. Embroidery's been around for a long, long time before me or anybody else. So that was one of the things that was kind of cool. Now, I did find something really, really special. And when I found this, I kind of, jumped up and down, because I really didn't save much from the old days. And I wish I had, but I didn't have the foresight to think that what I was doing when I was younger had any real significance. It's only, now that I'm getting older, that I'm seeing all of those memories, which are just, trapped in here now. I wish I had more tangible things. So for anybody out there who is young, and I mean, you're starting your career, you're starting your embroidery career, the one piece of advice that I can give you is save the things that you're doing. Save those little trinkets, because you never know, 30 years later, you might actually, consider them.
Your first project, your first stitch out.
Yeah, your first project, your first stitch out, your, little pieces from your machine, little trinkets. And this is, believe it or not, one of my most prized possessions. There you go, okay? This is it. And I'll try to get a close-up here on the camera. But if you look at this right here, this is actually a hook. And it's a little wooden, thing, looks like a pencil. And on the end, there is a metal hook. The actual hook on the end is missing. So there would be normally a hook there. Now, this was actually used for threading Shifley machines. When I was a kid and I started out as a shuttle boy, and then I became a watcher, we would have to change over hundreds of spools. When we yelled changing into the factory, you'd run to the machine with like an 80-pound box of thread that looks like this, and you'd literally change over between 100 and 456 needles, and you would then take every single piece that you did, and you would take the actual thread and make a little loop like this. So once your loop was made, you would actually take that loop, and then you would take your hook, and you would literally put it through the eye of the needle, grab it, and pull the thread through the eye of the needle. And that's the way we actually threaded our machines with one of these. So when you look at the design of this, it's kind of ergonomic, and the reason why is when we would be watching a machine, and if there was a thread break on the machine, we did not stop production. We keep in mind the machines only moved at around 100 or 110 stitches per minute, so they weren't really fast, but they were producing a lot of emblems at a time. And what you would do if you found a thread break is you would actually take that thread, and while the machine was running, you would grab the thread and rethread it using one of these. So this is something, Jennifer, don't let me lose this, okay? If I don't want to lose it, what am I going to do, Jen?
I'll hide it.
Jennifer will hide it from me. I know there's stuff probably hidden all over the place that I'm not even aware of. So that was one of the things. Now, these are a couple of other things which I didn't find in Canada, but I do want to show them because they have some sentimental or historical value as well. This piece right here is actually the, I guess, what would you call this?
The eye of the
eye. This was from an old Melco Digitrack, and the Digitrack was the first sort of computerized machine that I learned how to punch on or digitize on. And it was a board-based system, so a really big board. And what we had was this little piece here that you held onto. There's a cross eye on here. And we had a little pad that had numbers where you could actually type in your densities. You had function numbers, F1, F2, F3, F4. You could actually do marks, so mark 1. There was all kinds of things. If I think back, I think F09 was a needles out, F11 was a needles in, F05 was to start a design. I could have them all mixed up, but there was all these functions that you had to learn. And when you actually created a design with this, we had it modified. Because I was a Shifley puncher, we actually used to use a little piece that had a nail or a needle on the end, and we had this jerry-rigged for us because I was so used to using that little nail on the end that we actually changed out the piece of plastic with the crosshair, and I would have this on here. Now, the reason why we did that is because in the old days when we would be doing a design on paper, because it was drawn on a paper draft, when I went off and, went to the restroom or had a coffee break, I would always mark my designs as to what was completed or where I was. And the way I did that was I pushed on that little nail, and it actually punched a hole in the paper pattern, because you'd press it and it would leave an indentation. And that's how we kind of kept track or left breadcrumbs as we were punching, because it's very different than it is today. When I learned how to digitize, especially mechanically at one stitch at a time, you did not have a computer screen that you could look at as a reference to where you were. You didn't have something to look at to see what had been done and what still needed to be completed. You had to mark it with a magical instrument like this, or you had to mentally keep track. So, and keep in mind, there was no, redos. There was no undos. There was no editing. There was no second guess, because in the early days, we punched on jacquard paper tape, and then we actually went to 8-channel tape, which was actually outputted on a faucet machine. And a faucet actually created something that looked like this. And this is another little jewel that I found. I thought that I did not save any of them, but lo and behold, look what I found in a box. I found a tape. This is a 8-channel tape. And this is how designs used to be read on a machine. And I remember having to learn how to read paper tape. You'd look for, stop commands, jump stitches. I don't really remember 100% anymore, but you would see continuous patterns for fills. So you could go through, and by looking at jumps and stop commands and seeing the reference point, you would then learn how to read your designs. Because if you wanted to edit in the old days, the way you edited was by unwinding tape, finding the place that you wanted to change. We had a little tool that would cut the tape where you wanted it to, and then we had these little plastic pieces with holes in them that we would put over top and then knock more holes to splice them together. So this is how it was done many, many, many years ago. And also, Jennifer, I'm going to hand this over to you so that you can hide it away from me and give it to my kids when I'm gone. So this is kind of a cool thing, some authentic paper tape. And then, of course, we went to, well, first it was 5 1/4 inch, but this is a 3 1/2 inch floppy. I know this isn't exactly historic, but this is one that I had designs saved on. I don't even know what's saved on here because I don't have anything that will read it at this point. So, maybe we'll look into that later as well. So that was kind of some cool stuff that I found. And then we went into a couple things that I found afterwards. Keep in mind that I unfortunately got rid of a lot of this stuff in the early days as well. And then I, got rid of a lot of stuff when we decided to move. But I did, in the early part of my career, win a bunch of contests in the commercial industry. I started out as an educator in the commercial industry. And after about a decade, then I moved into the home industry, which is where I've primarily been focused to this day. But between 1996 and 2001, so within a 5-year period, I did win 30 awards for digitizing. And in 1996, this is one of the first designs that I entered, and I won a few prizes that year, but this is one I did, and I did it specifically for my father at the time, because my father actually did love Arizona. He lived there for many years, and he loved Arizona, and I did this cap with him in mind. And it was one of the first caps that I did where I actually lined up the peak to the crown. Now, keep in mind that if you are going to embroider on a peak and a crown, it has to be done on a panel program. You cannot embroider through the bill of a crown. You will break your machine. This was done in the probably, what would you say, Jen, late 80s maybe? Well, it's 86 when I actually entered it. So probably 85 I did this design. And we worked with a cap manufacturer that was manufacturing caps domestically. And we would embroider everything. And the fun part was lining it all up so the snake ran through. And of course, then I have the skeleton on the sand. And then we have the, sort of the, I guess, what would you call it? The mountains and the sun. And then I embroidered a bunch of stuff, little cactus things. It says sticky cactus. Don't ask why. There's really no story to that, but a bad dream. And Jennifer's laughing because she knows that bad dream. We actually did make an attempt at doing retail embroidery at one point, and it was one of the, sometimes you do make mistakes in business and life, but you can't look at them as a mistake. You have to look at them as an opportunity to learn. So I had a wonderful opportunity to learn when I was in the retail market selling embroidery. And it wasn't a disaster, was it?
Not at all.
We did really well financially, but it was so tiring because
during Christmas.
Oh yeah, it was during Christmas, and I ran a machine in a mall during Christmas hours for 5 or 6 weeks. My toes were numb when I was done. So that was around that time.
Michelle says she has something that she can read your floppy disk on.
Ooh, okay. That might be cool. We'll see if we can, it would be cool to figure out, what is on there. So you never know. Maybe we'll try to arrange that at some point. Now, one other thing that I did, actually, I found a whole bunch of stuff. And one thing that I did find, and this is kind of cool, we did work also with license companies in the probably 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. My family worked with a license company, and we did all kinds of NFL, NHL, all the everything from basketball to hockey to football. And during the World Series, when the Blue Jays won, didn't they win 3 times or something, Jen? Was it twice? Or I can't remember. But if anybody can type in, does anybody remember when the Toronto Blue Jays won the back-to-back and maybe to-back World Series?
When Jesse was a baby.
When Jesse was
29 years ago.
Okay, 29 years ago.
Yeah.
We did a ton of stuff for the Blue Jays. I mean, I remember how many months did we have stuff running on machines, Jen? I mean, keep in mind, guys, we had 2 factories. We had 100, I forget how many multi-heads. We had 3 shifts. We had machines running day and night, 3 shifts a day for 6 days a week running Blue Jays. And I remember digitizing these a long, long time ago. The cool thing is, I mean, it's a patch, it's done on felt, but these are so clean. I mean, a lot of people think that when you did embroidery back then, that the technology has changed and you get better quality now. But I got to be honest, we had Tajima machines, and the quality we produce and how soft they are, that's really the essence of a good design. And actually, it's funny, I was having a little conversation with somebody today. We were kind of going back and forth on what was it, Messenger, and they were saying how nice the back of my design was. They had never seen a design that looked so clean. And I said, well, that's kind of cool, because most people don't realize that the back of a design, how clean it is and how few tails you have and how few birds' nests. You can tell how well a design is digitized by looking at the back as well as looking at the front. I mean, they should actually look pretty, good on both sides, and your embroidery should be nice and soft. Any
Monica
questions?
says that she thinks the tape looks like something computer cards that would have read the binary codes.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, to be honest, that's what embroidery is. Embroidery is binary codes. It's X and Y's. It's movement on machines. It's stop commands. It's start commands. It's jump commands. In the old days, we would have actually slow speed and fast speed as a command for those old Schiffley machines, but we had all of those commands written into paper tape. I would be lying if I said I could read every single hole that was in a paper tape. I would look for repetitive kind of patterns because a fill pattern had a certain look to it. Satins had others, and then you would actually see where jumps and trims were. And in the old days, what I used to do was I would put in sometimes about 10 repetitive needle outs or jump stitches in a row, so that way I could go in and read my tape, because you didn't know if things were going to line up until you literally ran this on the machine to see if it worked out. So it's really kind of cool, the history of embroidery, because it is very binary. It's X's and Y's and commands. So that's kind of cool. Now, here is a couple other things that I had. When I was actually embroidering or digitizing commercially, and this is when I really entered the commercial market and I started entering the contests. I won a couple. They asked me to write for the magazines first, then they asked me to teach, and I taught seminars, and I exhibited at the time at the ISS shows, and I ended up exhibiting our company, which was called at that time Punch Perfect. Okay, that's our company logo way back. And I found some old letterhead way back when. Do you remember this letterhead, Jen? Okay.
That was all the stuff I saved.
Yeah,
yes,
this
I
is
do.
all okay. So you saved this. Okay, that doesn't surprise me. I'm acting like the hero here. Like I found all this stuff that I saved. Apparently Jennifer is the one who saved it all. But that was our company, Punch Perfect. Now, here's a little word to the wise. If you're starting your business, never put the word perfect in the name. You can say punch pretty good or punch okay, but as soon as you say punch perfect, people expect, guess what? Perfection. And that's kind of what we tried to achieve. Nobody's perfect, but we tried our best. And that's why we actually did so well in the commercial industry. At that time, our actual costs per thousand for a design to be created was $15. So a 10,000 stitch design, if you wanted me to create a design, would cost $150. And remember, we had a rush service too, didn't we? Well, actually, I can tell you what the rush service was, because here I have my very creative
15, 20, 25.
Okay, Jennifer remembers, but here I have a price list that I did when I was in the commercial industry. And I've always said you got to be first or different. If you're both, you're going to be a success. So I've always tried to be a little different in things and first whenever possible. But again, there's nothing new under the sun. But this is something that I did called the National Embroiderer, okay? And I actually did a little price list that was almost a, you know, I guess a, what do you call this? A mock-up or a, there's a certain word, I can't remember it, but we did a little spoof on this. And I did all kinds of things here. It says designs that create more profit at the end of the day, keeping your production in mind. That was our tagline. Quality that's out of this world. And then I put a whole bunch. At that time, I had only won 19 awards. But anyways, I did this here, and that is actually embroidered. So I did an embroidered insert inside of my printed catalog, and then I had it printed out so that there was always an educational resource. I had something called embroidery terms, and I let my customers know, because I realized that most of them that were coming to us the first time had no clue what quality was, and they might not even know what a zigzag, a satin, a fill stitch, a trapunto stitch, a column stitch. They might not know what any of the terminology was. So I gave them a guideline, and this is really, to this day, education is the foundation of our business. Back in the old days, when I was selling designs to companies worldwide, we provided this to educate them, and all of the standard fills that I offered. I always tried to tell people, I actually number them from number 1 to number 12. And I had like a gazillion fill patterns in my software at the time, because I've been using Wilcom for like 30 plus years. But I made sure that I only chose my favorite 12. Because the rule is, if you give your customers 500 options, you're going to be there more time spending more time showing them and telling them the difference between those 100 different options. If you give them 12, which is what I gave them, they'll choose one of those, and it'll be very, very quick. If they don't like any of them, then you can open that door, but otherwise it might be a little bit of a Pandora's box, right?
And confusing.
And confusing, yeah. So we also talked about artwork. We talked about what artwork is, clean artwork, design changes, you know, variable options. I talked about the difference between vector and bitmap. And, you know, so we used to have people give us actually golf balls. Remember, Jennifer? They'd give us a golf ball and tell us they wanted the logo on the golf ball to be digitized. That is, you know, kind of crazy. We would try to do it, but you know, you need clean artwork to create clean designs. So anyways, this was just a cool little thing that we did back in the day. So I came across that.
The J's won in 92 and 93.
92 and 93. So that's how old these are.
And what year was Jesse born?
92. Okay, so
Good.
Trick questions. Jennifer's going to start asking me all the kids' birthdays and my anniversary, which I've only forgotten once in our marriage, right? I'll remember that more than she will. No, actually, I don't think she'll ever forget that. But
Amanda says she has an old Melco software with the computer that goes with it.
oh,
she
no.
can't get rid of it because people still run machines and they just might need it.
Yeah, you know what? That old Melco, I remember that I started on a pantograph for 2 years. I digitized one stitch at a time. Then we found the Digitrax, and then I went to EDS2 and EDS3. Our first single head embroidery machine was a old Ultramatic. It was called an Ultramatic machine that was hooked up to my my Digitrack, and it was a single head machine. It looked like a sewing machine more than it did an embroidery machine, but you actually ended up speeding up and slowing down the machine with a little crank underneath that actually would tighten the tension on the band and would make it go faster. So I mean, this is crazy, crazy stuff. Now, this was another really cool thing that I found. This was, you guys have seen my Bulldog before. This is my Bulldog hat, or maybe some of you haven't. But this is the Bulldog hat that I won my first grand prize with, and that was in 1998. So after 2 years of trying, I won my first grand prize, and it was for this one right here. I actually found the original copy of the magazine. I know I got a little bit of glare on there, but there's the original copy of the magazine, which is kind of cool. And then I did find a couple of other magazines. I did an article on 3D foam back in the day. So with EMB magazine, which is no longer around, I did an article on 3D foam, and I actually did a really cool cookie on the brim of a hat. And then I also found this, and this one, you might be wondering, what's the significance of a printed piece of paper? And at the bottom there, it says 146,000, and it has a bunch of stuff, and there's coffee spilt all over it. But the significance is, if you look over here, this is actually my design from here. So that is the original artwork from the design. And this is that vermicelli, or that, you know, kind of stipple effect. I actually got to go down a little bit, but this is that stipple effect. It's kind of a stitch that looks almost like, well, it's a stipple stitch, but it doesn't cross over any of the other parts.
It's a black screen. I can't see anything.
You can't see anything?
No.
Oh. Oops. I don't know what's happening. Sorry, guys. I hit the wrong button. Okay, black screen, my apologies. I got a little button crazy, but I'll go back a few steps. This is the original artwork, and there's the design that I actually digitized, and that was the 2001 Stitch Off Champion with Stitches Magazine, and it is a stipple type effect. I called it a vermicelli stitch at the time, because I got to be honest, when I was digitizing back then, I didn't even know what a stipple stitch was, because that was more towards the home market, and I was a commercial embroiderer for the most part. So I kept that, and then I also kept another piece of history for me, and I'll see if I can find it. And I think I lost it, Jennifer. Okay, I might have to come back to that one. The thing that I was looking for, which I really do hope I can find, is my certificate for that prize. I did actually find the certificate for the design that I actually did. But anyways, I think I've lost it, guys. It might be up in the house. I might have forgotten to bring it. So one little piece that I forgot. Now, a couple more things to show you. Actually, only one for the most part. And that is this. I kept the best till last, because I had been wishing that I had kept this for years. Like for the last probably 15 years, this was on my mind. And I was like, oh, I wish I could find one of these. My grandfather started our business with my grandmother, and he made emblems, and he was a salesman. That was his job. He was really good at sales, and he traveled all across the country geared towards the tourist industry. And we sold or built our business on patches. We have had, we do have patches on our site. We have do-it-yourself patches. We have ready-made patches. We have Twill that's specific for patches. We have a webinar that you can watch that's on patches. Our whole foundation of our business has been built on patches. And my grandfather actually did a catalog, and this is what he actually started our whole business on. It's actually a catalog that is for Dress Crest Embroidery Company Limited. So there it is, Dress Crest Embroidery Company Limited. And we sold emblems, and they were for the tourist industry. So we have all kinds of different patches that we did in our terms and conditions. Now I'm going to go a couple pages, and then I'm going to skim through all of these and go right to the back. And the reason why is, if you remember back to the 70s when you saw a lot of patches, there was novelty patches that were available. And my grandfather did do a whole bunch of novelty patches. And I have to admit that they are not, by today's standards, what would we say, Jennifer?
Appropriate.
Appropriate. They are not appropriate for today's standards, and some of them may be considered offensive. Please keep in mind, that was my grandfather, not me. But I am so happy that I found this, because it is a real piece of our history. And I remember this back when I was a kid in the 70s. This was what my grandfather actually did. So that's my little show and tell. Do we have any other questions, Jennifer? I do. We got to give away some prizes. I know that.
I don't see any questions.
Awesome. Well, if you guys do, if you haven't joined our Facebook groups or subscribe to our YouTube channel, please do so. We have all kinds of incredible resources. We always try to be unique and different. We did some really cool stuff with Carica Stitch a couple weeks ago, and if you don't know what that is, we're basically taking people's faces and stuff, and we're turning them into stitches by the talent of Daryl and myself. And that's fun. And I know that we have some really cool stuff that people have posted in there. It's been a lot of fun. So I'm going to head back over to the other camera. So just give me a second, guys. Okay, there we go. I am back. And if you have any other questions, Jennifer, let me know. And let me know, guys, in your comments if you're kind of enjoying this. Like I said, I've never done a little thing like this, which usually we try not to, show too much of our, I guess, personal history. We try to keep it business orientated, but coming home from my holiday and seeing family and doing my little treasure hunt, I couldn't resist to share some of these things with you guys. So that's the reason behind it. And we'll see if we have more treasure. I'll have to ask Jennifer if she's hidden anything else from me over the years. Is there anything else I should know about, Jen?
Whatever you found would have been whatever I
Okay.
saved from my desk.
Awesome. Okay, so boy or girl, guys, and we are going to reveal right now which one it was. And it actually is a boy. Then there were 3. So we have lots and lots of testosterone in our family. And Beth is expecting another little boy. So that's 3 boys. Now, I was going to say something like, I think this is the last one, but so it's up to you guys. And I'm talking to Jesse and James, the granddaughter type thing, right? So okay.
Don't count Bethany.
Yeah, don't count Beth out. But she said this was it, but we might be able to sway her, right? We need a little girl, but 3 boys. It is such a blessing. And so do we have some winners, Jen, coming in from Beth?
Sheila
Awesome.
has a question. She
Sure.
says, will there ever be a class for caricatures?
Oh, will there ever be a class for caricatures? I do get a question quite often about, and I'm just going to get my screen a little larger here. Quite often I get questions about advanced digitizing classes, and we're talking about blending and that type of stuff. I do have some advanced digitizing classes on our site, and I probably will do more. But we don't have a ton of them because, to be honest, 90% of the people aren't ready for the advanced classes, and they would get completely lost. Carica Stitches is kind of one of those. I do rely on Daryl's talent to give me the artwork because I'm not a graphic artist. I'm a good copy artist. I can take a piece of artwork and transform it into stitches. That's the extent of my talent. But you need to have a good foundation, which is the artwork. And then it's about blending colors on top of each other. So again, one of the best things you can do if you are looking for more advanced theory on designs is find either from myself, because I consider our designs to be really good quality. And I apologize about that, guys. Okay. Either from myself or from another quality digitizer out there, because I'm not the only one, but you will want to start purchasing really detailed designs. And when you get those detailed designs, what you'll want to do is you'll want to dive deep into them and see how they were layered, how the objects were put in sequence. If you do have the Wilcom or Hatch software, it's even better because we do provide the EMB format, which means that you can take a look at every single object and see the properties that I actually used. So that is, it's one of those things where you got to be a little bit self-taught, but if you are past the basics and you're at an advanced level, then it's a matter of looking at digitizers' designs that know what they're doing and learning from them. Does that make sense, Jen?
Yes.
I mean, it's a hard one. So, yeah.
Allison says she would like to see more on blending. And Amanda says maybe advanced applique training.
Okay. Actually, we applique. We have a couple of webinars coming up, and we are in the works on some other stuff. It's not, I can't make any announcements yet, but there is some more stuff coming out really soon, and there will be an applique section on that. So yes, we are working on content for that as well. And if you are a subscriber to our YouTube channel, we do have quite a bit of material or reference that is there currently. I forget how many videos do we have, Jen? Like hundreds at this point. So there's hundreds of videos there that are software and non-software specific. Other question, Jen?
No, Andy, I'm not going on camera tonight.
Okay.
We've had a few people ask if Bethany's having twins. Nope, no twins.
No twins.
However, twins are on both sides of the family.
Yeah,
so
Jennifer is actually a twin, but she is not. She has a twin brother, so they're not identical. And I married the right twin, as far as I'm concerned. But I love you, Jeff. You are the most awesome guy. Love you with all my heart. But anyways, Jennifer is a twin. My grandmother is a twin, so we do have twins in the family.
Okay, we ready for the winners?
Okay, winners are.
Okay, the Facebook winner that I have been given is Jenny Hess. So congratulations,
Yay.
Jenny Hess. If you want to email into contact@embroiderylegacy.com and let them know you won.
Awesome, awesome. And what you're winning, just so you know, is your choice of either a seat to the beginners workshop, which is on digitizing. And I have some dates that I'll show you in just a second, or the 3D foam workshop that we are doing as well. So you can choose either one of those. If you've already attended both of those, just let us know and we'll make sure we take care of you in some other way. And
Michelle says, remember painting with thread? Years ago, I learned to digitize. I spent a lot of time learning free motion embroidery, an art in itself. Yes.
Yeah, it is an art. And that's sort of, after you do 100,000 plus designs, you tend to get pretty good at it.
And the YouTube winner that I've been passed along is Carly Powell. So congratulations, Carly.
Congratulations, Carly, and congratulations, Beth. And I'm so happy that we have another baby coming into the family.
Yep. And thank you again, Teresa Weir, and also Christine Bird.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate that. Jennifer was reminding me of some other gifts that I got in the past, but if Jennifer wanted to, I'd let her mention those. So, but they were fun as well. We appreciate when we used to do a lot of shows on the road. Just having that connection live with people was so much fun. Now, here is a couple other things. A authorized photo of Jennifer. So you guys asked for it. Here it is. I actually got Jennifer to agree to put up a photo. I have only seen her happier on one occasion, and that's when she got to hug a sloth for the first time. Remember, Jen?
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, now here's the dilemma. There's two boys and you have two arms. What are you going to do, Jen?
I got Big lap.
Okay,
Enough
awesome.
room for all of them.
Yeah, so anyways, Jennifer actually let me put up a photo, so thank you, Jen. Okay, just so you guys know, if you are interested in our Digitizing for Beginners workshop, which is the 18th and the 25th, we did do it in 2 break apart dates this time. So there's an hour and a half at the beginning, an hour and a half at the end, so that we have a time to answer questions. That is when that is going to be. We also have the 3D Puffy Foam webinar on October the 2nd that is happening. So that one is coming up. Also, if you have never tried our designs before, or if you've tried them but you haven't tried these designs, there is a link being posted to our free embroidery design kit. And we have some great, cool designs for you. Appliques, our vintage lace, detailed designs with blending, as well as some of our, I guess, freestanding designs. I like to call them the organza designs, where you're actually using organza and you are burning the edges away. So all of the designs and tutorials, where applicable, are available for that. And that is absolutely free. So that's the magic word. And then a couple little changes, and there's more coming soon. My son Jesse has been hard at work for years now rebuilding our site and our brand, and he's doing an awesome job. We decided to change the names of our clubs. And keep in mind, if you do check out our site, digitizingmadeeasy.com, we do sell individual designs. And our designs, you know, a design can be $3.95, or some of our more detailed designs might be a little bit more. But we do sell them individually. But we do have our clubs, which are by far the best way to purchase quality designs. It works out to literally, you know, under $1 a piece, if depending on which level you are. We used to have actually the silver, gold, and diamond, and we've changed the names to the occasional stitcher, to the embroidery enthusiast, and to the embroidery addict. So we have something for all of you, and you can make the decision yourself where you fit in. But the higher the level, the more bonuses you get, and we have a bunch of really good changes coming up in the very near future as well. So we're always trying to improve, and our site is improving in every aspect.
Now, I was asking, is it the same webinars that you just did previously?
It is we're repeating the last 2 webinars that we did. Yes, they are. You know, keep in mind, if you're looking for educational resources, we do have theory-based education for 10 different brands of software. Those lessons never expire. We have new webinars in the works as well that will be coming up and being announced in the future. And if you are looking for sayings or phrases, that is what we have on sale right now. Christmas in July is over, and we have a bunch of really fun sayings that are available for 51% off. And again, if you've never tried digitizing, we do have a Digitizers Challenge. It's absolutely free. We have a 3-day trial version of Hatch that is fully functional, because the only way you can determine if software is good or not is by seeing the results when they stitch out. And that's something that Hatch is amazing with, in that they have given you a full-featured trial that not only lets you play with all the tools, but it lets you stitch all of the results after you're done. So you can do that. We are an authorized Hatch reseller, and we do have exclusive bonuses if any of you do decide to purchase Hatch. But keep in mind, we do teach on 10 other brands as well. The way I learned mechanically, I got to be honest, I mean, some software is in a way kind of better than others as far as how it is written and the tools that are included. But I can create almost any design with the most simplest program. You know, it comes down to 3 basic stitch types: a running stitch, a satin stitch, and a fill stitch. And every program I've seen has those 3 stitch types and most of the other things. So feel free to do that. And again, we really appreciate you guys joining us. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. It really helps us out. I think we hit 38,000 subscribers just a few days ago, so that is awesome. We thank you for that. And our Facebook groups, we have one for general embroidery and digitizing, and one specifically for our Hatch users. So that is what we're all about.
Karen is asking if you have more of the gnomes coming.
More gnomes. Yes, I do. I have some gnomes coming. We had some gnomes that we gave away with some of our theme related parties, but there is 3 other characters that I just have to get ready. That's the only downside, being on a 5-week holiday. I got back 2 days ago. It took me till today to just get organized, and I have about 2 weeks of just converting designs that I've digitized and getting things underway. So they're coming, Karen, I promise. Which Karen was that? Is that
Karen Hoban.
okay? Okay, Karen, I'll do my very best to get some more gnomes to you. Awesome. Are we good, Jennifer, dear?
Well, I think we are good.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys joining us. I hope it was entertaining, and we're just glad to be back home, glad to have seen family.
And think of me with all the stories I'm going to hear tonight as John walked down
and
memory
actually,
lane.
just so you can see it again, there is Jennifer. We got a authorized Jennifer photo, and now I'm getting the look. Okay?
Now you're in trouble.
Now I'm in trouble, but we're going to leave on that, guys. So have a great evening, and we'll talk to you later. I better change that.
Yes.